Hello, bonsoir, and welcome to the Get French Football News Show. I'm your host, Nathan Staples, and joining me this week are Eric Devin and Philippe Bargion. With new arrivals coming each week, Ligue 1 is slowly becoming the winter destination for European footballers. First Julian Draxler, now Memphis Depay, maybe Dimitri Payet as soon as well. But we'll have more on that and the action from the weekend after this week's headlines. Ligue 1's 21st match day was always set to have a feisty start, with Bastia hosting Nice in the Mediterranean derby. But few could have imagined how fiery the encounter would be, with the result a 1-1 draw being overshadowed by racist chants from the crowd and a shouting match in the tunnel between Mario Balotelli and Bastia manager Francois Ciccolini. On Saturday, PSG seized the opportunity presented by Nice dropped points to pull it within a point of the erstwhile leaders, recording a 2-0 win at Nantes through Edison Cavani's brace. The multiplex was rather devoid of goals on Saturday afternoon, punctuated by a scoreless draw between visiting Lille and Dijon. Bordeaux hosted Toulouse in one of several rivalries and continued what has now become a 5-match unbeaten run with a 1-0 win in the Derby de la Garonne. And the Celtico, as Guingamp termed Rennes' visit to the Stade Roudeau, Johan Gourcuff's equaliser allowed the visitors to pinch a point in a 1-1 draw, despite being reduced to 10 men after Sajin Perchic's second booking just before the interval. At Metz, new signing Sheikh Diabate wasted no time improving his quality, Le Grignac moving up a place in the table courtesy of his brace in a 2-0 win over Montpellier. On Sunday, Monaco recorded an unsurprisingly comprehensive win over Lorient, 4-0, as Valère Germain and Gabriel Bouchillier each notched a brace. Sunday's early evening match, though, wasn't without controversy, as Angers were once again pegged back by an own goal after taking the lead, only to lose 2-1 on Loic Perrin's winner, which deflected off the Saint-Etienne captain's wrist before going in. In the weekend's Grand Show, an Alexandre Lacazette powered Lyon past visiting Marseille 3-1, keeping the hosts barely within touching distance of the podium. In Ligue 2, none of the chasing pack of Lens, Reims, Sochaux and Amiens were able to record a win, meaning that Brest can move 6 points clear with a win at home to Red Star this evening. And finally, in transfer news, the Dimitri Payet saga is coming to an end. Contrary to reports from earlier today with Sky Sports that a deal is dead, RMC have reported this afternoon that a fourth and final bid from Marseille of €30 million is expected to be made, meeting West Ham United's revised valuation. According to a source that contacted by Get French Football News, he said it is difficult to see in what scenario Dimitri Payet does not end up wearing a Marseille shirt again within the next month. The player has yet to finalise contractual details with OM, but has given his agreement to join the club. And as soon as a deal is reached between the Hammers and Marseille, Payet will quickly agree personal terms for a 4.5-year contract. West Ham have revised their valuation of the player twice this month, initially asking for €40 million, then €34 million, and now €30 million in order to part with the player. Payet to Marseille, a dream for the player, is closing on becoming a reality. And that's all for the news. But remember, for all the latest, head on over to our website at www.getfootballnewsfrance.com and follow us on Twitter at GFFN. We start this week with the feisty encounter between Lyon and Marseille. The hosts came out on top in a 3-1 victory. But Philip, did Lyon have this all their way throughout this encounter?
Not for the first 50 minutes. There was a lot of promise for this game. You had last week Marseille versus Monaco, where the sides were quite unequal. And there you had the derby of the Olympique. There's been a new kind of phrase taken upon by the French media. They're saying it was the Olympico, which people have started to use. Basically, this was about two sides that were pretty much equal, or should have been equal on paper, and it just lasted only 15 minutes. Marseille started the game very well down the flanks. They were extremely dangerous. You had Sakai on the right, you had Sanson on the left. Sanson had a good start to the game, but then he just kind of disappeared, and there was no Marseille pressure, and Lyon. Yeah, the pressure was a bit better from Lyon as the half grew in, and but it did have some saves to make. Like as it hit the side netting, and then Lyon scored their opening goal. They scored their second and third via Marseille gifting them the goals, basically. But Marseille got back into the game thanks to a set piece, and I must say most of the set pieces weren't that well defended, and it made for some very nervy situations in both penalty boxes. But in the end, Lyon came out on top. But you just feel that had Marseille played the same way that they did in the first 15 minutes, it could have been a better encounter, because it was all about Lyon having a lot of the ball. Making life difficult for Marseille, but I'm sorry, with players like Thauvin, Gomis, Sanson on the pitch, I mean, as Marseille fans would have hoped for a better performance, and with good reason. So it's a bit disappointing how this panned out, but a massive win for Lyon. I mean, had they lost that, they would have been just a point above Marseille and whopping 11 points behind PSG. Now then, 37. Nice are starting to lose a couple of points. The aim of challenging for at least a third spot is still very much alive, and they're keeping this decent home form. So it's not a bad evening at all for Lyon.
Eric, what was your thoughts on the game? I mean, Lyon really dominated the second half, in all honesty, and Marseille really struggled to put anything really together in an attacking sense as well.
Well, yeah, I think when the match started, we saw Marseille playing with a lot of energy. Zambo Anguissa was playing a deeper role. He was all over the place, tackling and allowing the fullbacks to get forward by helping out the defenders. Fani and Rolando had decent match. Well, Rolando's mistake there in Lacazette's second, I think, perhaps not so much, but in general, I think Marseille played all right. They were really harrying Lyon's back line. It should be noted that Mamana and Yanga and Biwa had never played together before. Mamana was just coming back from a 2-month injury spell. So Marseille started the match much as they had against Monaco in the right way. They were pressing, they were playing aggressively. Sanson in particular is getting forward, but as the match started to wear on, the intensity dropped, and soon you only had token pressure from Gomis at the top, and that back line, particularly Yanga and Biwa and Mamana, were able to get forward with the ball at their feet. They were able to play long passes. So too for Gonalon, so too for Tolisso, and that just gave Lyon an increasingly shortened pitch to play with, and it was that much easier for their front four to create opportunities. And I think that was that. It was really just a matter of lather, rinse, repeat for Marseille. They started the match playing very well, playing very aggressively, much as they had against Monaco, but they simply couldn't keep up that intensity. And I don't know whether that's down to fitness, that's down to the maturity of the players. Again, this is a very young team, especially that midfield. But it's something that Garcia needs to work on, and it just really serves to underscore how far away Marseille are from challenging for that top three, top four in France. Because after that run they'd had in December, people were really starting to tout them and say, could this team be perhaps arriving ahead of schedule, if you will, in terms of Frank McCourt's plan. But I think now we see just how far they are. I mean, and let's face it, Lyon are in fourth place, but that cadre of teams above them is another rung up the ladder, as it were. And I don't think that Marseille at this point in time, are the team that perhaps some had expected when they had that good run of form before the winter break.
Philip, what did you think to Morgan Sanson and his debut, obviously signing from Montpellier during the week? He had a good start, but you mentioned as well he sort of faded into obscurity, didn't he? And sort of almost lost sight of the game in a sense.
Yeah, just to come back from just a point for Marseille, they did play against Monaco and Lyon these first two games. It's not the easiest opponents that they'll ever get. I've just been looking at their fixture list. They've got Montpellier at home at the end of this week, which is a winnable game at the Vélodrome. They have quite a good record. Then away to Metz, home to Guingamp, away to Nantes, home to Rennes before the Classico, which will be end of February. So I think we'll see what Sanson will bring to the squad then, and maybe if they can get Payet. I honestly don't think so. If Garcia can bring something together, but I still believe that they were beaten by better sides on both occasions, so last weekend and last night, and that when they could be categorized as best of the rest because they do have Gomes who can score goals. They do now have a backline that is able to be quite dangerous on opposing opposite set pieces. It's not looking all that bleak, and I think it only needs won't be needing a lot of time. Sorry, I don't think to gel with all those players, with Thauvin, with Cabella, with Maxime Lopez, with Zambo Anguissa. That didn't go very well last night, but it's not going to be. I don't think it's going to take too long, and we'll see what happens at home to Montpellier this week. But it doesn't. Sure, the results aren't very good, 2 defeats in a row, but it's against good sides, and moreover against better sides than them.
Yeah, and it was clearly going to be the measuring stick of how far they'd come in these 2 games, and
because a lot of experts have said, well, basically the only time Marseille have done anything against a good side, i.e. the top 4, was at the PSG, where they played a catenaccio, played 11 men behind the ball and got the point. And they got that by not playing football, but they did get the point. So when they do play football, they eventually lose.
The catch-22 of a developing team, isn't it? Eric, let's talk about the defensive issues at Marseille, especially. And both sides, I suppose, had different views. Obviously, Lyon playing maybe a makeshift backline with Mamana and Yangambi was the centre-backs. What did you think to the 2 defences in this one? And I mean, occasionally didn't look particularly good, in all honesty, did they?
No, I think a lot of this is down to organization. As Philip rightly says, I think that Marseille need to have a recalibration of the way they approach matches. I think that against a team like Lyon on the road, Marseille need to swallow their pride and play with more caution. We saw this against Monaco last week. They tried to play this 4-3-3 and be aggressive and be attacking, and it just didn't come off. A more cautious approach, maybe even playing 3 at the back, I think would allow Marseille to have greater solidity and to get better results rather than being blown apart. But I think that the pressure on this club from their fans, from the weight of their history, if you will, is pretty oppressive right now. And I think that Garcia, who also has a history as an attack-minded manager, feels pressure to play in a certain way. Whereas that's perhaps less than ideal. I do think that getting 5th place is a very realistic goal for Marseille. Being able to, and that will be a nice bridge in terms of being able to offer European football to players in the summer. I mean, let's face it, the Europa League's a decent competition. Whether it's the ideal for Marseille in an ultimate sense, I don't think it is, but I think that being able to offer that to players would be a good thing, and that he should focus on winning the winnable matches, whether it's something like, I don't know, Dijon at home or something like that, or away to Angers, winning matches that are winnable and playing this forward-thinking 4-3-3 in those matches. But if you've got PSG on the road, if you've got Lyon on the road, teams that are clearly, if not streets ahead of Marseille at this point in time, certainly in better shape, then you have to be a little bit more humble and play in a more defensively oriented way. As for Lyon's defense, I think we see it's a little bit of an issue here. I think that injuries have certainly been problematic. We've had Mamana just coming back. Jallet was injured for much of the early season and still hasn't had much playing time. And we've seen Diakabi now be injured. We don't know for how long he is injured at this point, but he's certainly been missed. And Nicolas Nkulu who's away at the Africa Cup of Nations at present, but has also been woefully out of form. It's just a matter of resolve. I personally think that once Diakabi's fit again, Lyon's best look would be something along the lines of Jallet, Mamana, Diakabi, and Morel as a more defensively oriented back four rather than the rampaging style of Raphael, for example. And that solidity will allow Lyon to have, a greater propensity to attack and a greater freedom in attack with the front six. So I think both managers are, getting in a little bit wrong in that regard. Jallet in particular. I know Lyon have had to deal with injuries, and the clip off of which Nicolas Nkoulou has dropped is been somewhat unexpected as well. But I think it's really a matter of both managers perhaps being not as cognizant of where their teams actually are as they necessarily should be. I mean, we've seen how a good defense and an opportunistic attack can be frankly lethal. I mean, particularly in the case of Nice this season, they've done what they've done not because they've had a brilliant attack, not because of Mario Balotelli, but because they've had the league's best defense for much of the year. And if Lyon and Marseille can refocus their priorities on that and use the talent of their forward players to build off of that, then I think they could be in the top three, or certainly closer to it, despite the good form of the likes of Monaco, PSG in the recent month or so.
Because piping Nice for third is a possibility. I do believe, because the home form is not that bad. They've got the game in hand. I wish the LFP would get on and choose a date to play to replay this game at Metz. And Nice, I don't know. They seem to, on paper, it seems that they've got more of a more leisure to focus on the league now that the Europa League is gone. But it's not the best start of the year. They drew at home to Metz, who were bottom at the time. They drew again this weekend, and I don't know. I think it is possible. It is possible. And they always seem to have these. They lately seem to have these great second half of the season. Going back on Marseille, you talked about fifth, Eric. I mean, is there anyone? Any real competition aside from Saint-Etienne? I mean, do we honestly believe that Guingamp and Rennes will say, okay, we have to finish fifth because we want the Europa League, when we all know it's not true?
I do think that Guingamp looks the best, and they've got Nice the weekend. That's a huge match.
Yeah.
If they can record a win there, which I don't know if I'd favor them to do it, but I think that they're certainly in a good place to do that. Then I would look at Guingamp being probably prohibitive favorites for that. Rennes, I think that the sale of Entep and the lack of a decent striker, which they don't really seem to be doing anything to address in the window, there's not enough in attack for Rennes. I think the same thing with Saint-Etienne, the reasons we talked about on the preview show on Thursday with Nathan and Adam. I don't think Saint-Etienne are in for fifth. I think that right now, if I had to wager money on the way that the table would finish, Monaco, PSG, Lyon, Nice, Guingamp, in that order. That's not Lyon homerism. I think that Nice have really dropped off. They've got Guingamp this weekend, Monaco next. That's an opportunity for Lyon to put up perhaps 6 points on them, and they'd be just about nipping at their heels at that point then. So who knows what can happen? Maybe a case of Nice having peaked too soon.
It could be.
Well, I mean, I think it's injuries and AFCON absence is what it is. It's not a matter of form.
But that won't last, though. That's not going to last. I mean, the AFCON is a week, maybe 2 weeks from ending.
The finals the 4th.
Finals the 4th. Yeah. So we'll be back in mid-February. Should be okay, but I don't know. They seem to lack the ideas. Something to address. But yeah, there's a big question: is do Guingamp? I do agree that Guingamp are a great side, and that they seem to be actually. First of all, they're great to watch, but also seem to not have any pressure, which I think holds into their hand. But the big question is, do they win Europe? That's a big question. But because we all love them because of what happened last time we won in the Europa League. They went very, very far in the Europa League. They went to play against Kiev, which was great.
Let's quickly talk about another big transfer this week, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it, Philip, because we've seen Eric mention it a few times, and that's Memphis Depay's transfer to Lyon.
Yeah.
What do you think of the move?
I think it's a good move for everyone. We talked about it last week. I think he needed to get out of Old Trafford. He needed the game time. I think it's a good league for him. He's quite a tricky player, and he'll struggle at first because Liga have very solid defenses. Didn't play too badly when he came on last night, and yeah, a good move for Lyon, a good move for Depay, and I think a good move for Manchester United as well, because he wasn't playing under Mourinho, and everyone is happy, I would think.
Yeah, and just to clear something up about the reports about buyback fees and bits like that, and Eric, you can correct me if I'm wrong. It's not that you can't have a buyout clause in a contract in France. So it's a first offer essentially. So if a club comes in for Memphis, Manchester United have a first option on the player, and from what I've read, it's a 35 million euro offer to trigger it. Am I right?
I've not seen anything to the contrary, so I would think yes.
Yeah, I think that's the right thing. That's how they've got around the you can't have a buyout clause in a contract kind of thing. So there is something kind of in place. I did want to mention as well a player that both clubs ironically have been linked with now, and that's Patrice Evra, Eric. Jeremy Morales had a decent season and played well at the weekend, but they need a little bit of extra cover there.
Oh, that's a great move. I mean, I think that Evra doesn't seem to think that his international career is over, and I think that he would love to use the motivation that Lyon have, particularly with a congested fixture list with the Europa League and the Coupe de France, provided they beat Marseille continuing. I think he'd love to have that opportunity. He's been great. I've seen him play for Juventus 3 times this season. He's looked, as capable as ever. I think he doesn't feel that between Kurzawa's injury and Dean's lack of playing time in Barcelona, that the left back slot with the national team is necessarily not on the cards for 2018. And I think a 1.5-year deal, for example, would be ideal to allow him to extend his career and potentially, retire as a World Cup winning left back. Given France's potential, looking towards Russia 2018, I think it'd be a fantastic move. He's still got it on the pitch. He's got all the experience you could want. And I think he would give this team, a bit of leadership at the back, which they seem to be lacking. Maxime Gonalon is a wonderful captain, but in that back line, I don't know that we can necessarily look at any of these players, particularly with Jallet off the pitch, as being someone who's an experienced player who can be counted upon as a leader. I know Morel has quite a bit of experience, but he doesn't seem to strike me as that sort of player who's going to be barking instructions at players and being a demonstrative leader on the pitch. So I think it'd be a great deal if Juventus don't feel that they need him.
There has been an interview last night where the press were waiting on Bruno Genesio saying, "What do you think about the win? Are you happy?" and that kind of useless questions. But then they start mentioning Evra, and when Bruno Genesio replied, first of all, he seemed annoyed, and he seemed to say, "Well, I am actually learning that piece of information from you, you being the journalist." And L'Equipe actually had a whole debate about how Genesio probably wouldn't want Evra at the club for one reason or the other. So there was all these conspiracy theories about saying maybe Evra's ego is too big for such an inexperienced manager as Genesio, but it would make so much sense. I mean, Lyon are a big club. They're more often than not in the Champions League, and Evra would be a nice finish to his career. I mean, he would. I believe he would play there without too many questions. Not eternally, obviously, but I think it would be a good move. But I don't know. There's these reports that maybe Genesio doesn't want him. So make of that what you will.
Well, I mean, I would say to that, Philip, that I don't know how much power Genesio has. I mean, let's face it, he's a manager with, I think, no first-team experience before taking over as Lyon. He'd been with the club for a long time, and he was given his job.
I think he had non-league experience. It didn't go very well.
Right, he'd been given the job as a result of his having been with Lyon for a long time, similar to Remy Gard, promoted from within. and I don't think that he's looked at as being the type of manager of the like of, say, a Rudy Garcia, for example, that is going to have a huge say in the transfer policy. He'd be unhappy, maybe, but I don't think he has what we would say is a veto clause. I mean, for example, would he be necessarily the type of manager who would have gone in for some of these players he doesn't seem to have much time for? I'm thinking particularly of Serge Darder. So, yeah, it's a frustrating situation. I know Darder was bought before Tenesio was installed as manager, but I think that the point remains that he doesn't have that sort of power over player movement.
Philip, very quickly, if he decided to choose Marseille instead, has been reported just earlier today. Would that be a move? Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good for Marseille as well. Yeah. But, I mean, I didn't hear. I honestly didn't hear about that, so I haven't really considered it. But it would be good as well. Yeah. I would think actually, Eva being having played for Monaco, maybe it would be. I don't know, more interested in the Marseille project than the Lyon project, or actually playing and living in Marseille than in Lyon. Maybe I don't know. I'm just, but yeah, sure. I mean, it would be for any Ligue 1 club to have that kind of experience. It would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, and Crystal Palace have been trying for him, and that seems to have fallen through. I think whoever gets him with that experience, with the sheer amount of languages he knows and the experience he's had with players and the relationships he seems to have with some of the younger players especially, I think he'd be a fantastic move for any of them, really.
I think it's that time of his career where Crystal Palace doesn't seem like a good move at all, where it will involve a lot of work and a lot of, well, I don't know, a much more different kind of pressures than he would have at Lyon and Marseille, but one he could handle. At Crystal Palace, I just don't see it at all.
They're in for Patrick Van Aanholt, I'd seen as well.
Yeah,
I think Nathan, had you seen that as well?
Yeah, I think they're moving. Yeah. They're moving on from that. It looks like as well, and Marseille have been linked with Ricardo Rodriguez as well. Although that's probably more of an expensive option if they can get that through. So we'll move on to the Friday night's game where Nice continued to lose ground on top spot after a frustrating 1-1 draw that was marred with controversy again from the stands at the Fioriani. We'll start with matters on the pitch first, at least, though. And Eric, Basti did a really good job of nullifying Nice, especially in that first half.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought that they played a very combative style. I mean, as they're wont to do, but I think they had good movement too. I think that Aniange in particular played a good match, not only because of his goal, but he was also able to drop deep and really apply pressure on those wide players. For Nice, I think that was really instrumental. That because they had decided to go for that 3-5-2 in this match, those wingbacks are so important to the way that Nice play, and that all-out aggressive attack that Bastia are so well known for really did well to pinch Nice in wide areas and really limit their effectiveness going forward.
Yeah, and it was a strange one as well. I thought Oniange was excellent, and Kawasak's red really should have shifted the tide in some of these kind of games, Philip. But would Nice maybe a little bit too pedestrian after Bastia had gone down to 10 men?
Maybe thinking that the game was basically, well, not won because they were never really never quite ahead in that game, but. Yeah, just probably not pushing high enough because Kawasaki did get sent off midway through the first half, actually even before the halfway point of the second half, but not too many chances. And it is disappointing to see how maybe not predictable, but how they're just not playing as well as they were in the first half of the season, despite playing this time with 3-5-2.
Yeah, and Eric, I wanted to mention as well that I thought this a lot through the game, and Malang Sarr has had a really good start to the season, but has not been excellent since the break, and particularly in this one, he was rather poor, wasn't he?
No, absolutely. I would not hesitate to agree with you there. I think that I don't think that it's a matter of him being found out. I think it's just a matter of a bit of a slump. I mean, he's going to inevitably have dips in his form, and I think it's a little bit more magnified, particularly playing a system that needs to do this 3-5-2, that those wide fullbacks, the fullbacks to either side of Dante, their performances are going to be magnified because given that the wingbacks push so high up, Sarr is often left to deal with more attacks, particularly if Nice are caught on the break, and that his role is therefore that much more magnified. And against a team like Bastia, who are going to allow Nice to retain possession the way they like to, and then play on the counter, it's just that much more dangerous. And I think that particularly against these last few opponents that Nice have had, they are teams that are willing to be a little bit more scrappy. That's a Lorient, that's a Metz, that's a Bastia, to get the result that they want. And it's so in that way, the sort of the foibles, if you will, of Sarr are being a bit magnified by these teams that are willing to play in a certain way that unsettles Nice, and he's perhaps becoming a little bit more the victim of this than other players would be necessarily, because of the position in which he plays and the system in which Nice play.
Yeah, and it was a strange one. I mean, I tried to count the amount of times he lost possession in that game from just sloppy passes or a little bit of nonsensical holding on to the ball a little bit too long, and it must have been about 7, 8, or 9 times, and that's a little worrying for a player that had started so well, but he is so young, and in playing in a position where when you are so young, it can be quite difficult, really. And Onyanga ran rings around him at times. He was pressuring him at every moment. I thought he was excellent, and it really put him off the mood. But that wasn't really the main talking point, unfortunately.
It has been going on for a while, though.
Yeah,
it's not new. It's not new. It's this dip in form, and let's be honest. The guy's a kid, so
yeah,
18 today.
Yeah. So. That's why I'm hesitant to completely criticize him. Hopefully, this will be something he bounces back from quickly. This was he's been average recently, but this was a significant dip in a performance. I think this was the one where it was clearly he might look at himself after that one and think, right, I need to show that I can bounce back from this kind of abject performance. In all honesty, but talking about that, that's not really the big talking point coming out of the Friuli, and it is. Yet again at Bastia, issues with the crowd, Philip. And is it really that surprising that there's problems again?
I mean, I could say this is a Corsican problem, but it really does seem to hit Bastia more often than Ajaccio or Gazélec. Of course, those sides are just not as big as Bastia. I mean, Bastia is the biggest club in on the island, so in Corsica. And I don't know, maybe they haven't been punished enough in the past for doing that kind of stuff, but you just actually could see it coming. Balotelli being the new star, Bastia fans being notorious for that kind of action, for that kind of provocation, which I think is more that case. It's more provocation, and Balotelli being the big man that he is, not going completely ballistic over it, just being quite professional and criticizing it on the internet, and generally asking a genuine question: is this okay? Is this okay for this to happen? Of course, the obvious answer is it's not. So I guess I haven't gone through in all the history of the whole thing, but Bastia do need to be hit hard. There've been some precedent with Metz being decked off points. I don't think that playing a couple of games behind closed doors is going to cut it. I do think that getting a -5 point deduction may change some things, but again, it has to be a whole mentality issue, and this is just not going to be changed in just by a simple LFP decision, unfortunately.
Yeah, and before I get your thoughts on it, Eric, I did have a quick research on the issues of the past, and just to list a few of them. There was a racist banner in the 2007-2008 season that saw the stadium closed. There was crowd issues in the derby against Ajaccio that saw the stadium closed, and then issues outside of the stadium during that game where they were sat outside waiting for the Marseille fans. That caused them to change. Can be banned completely from the stadium. And then this season, even there was the hitting of Lucas in the opening game of the season. There's been racist chanting in this game before the game against Balotelli. strangely enough, the club has defended itself on both occasions this season with that hit on Lucas. They tried to say it was a mar on them for this incident as well. And like we mentioned in the news, Francois Ciccolini had a swearing match with Balotelli after the game as well. It's just hit after hit after hit, isn't it?
They do seem to take the victim card quite often.
It seems it's not a valuable excuse anymore, is it, Eric? They can't just keep saying, well, we're Corsicans, we get picked on. There's a significant issue here that needs to be sorted, isn't there?
There is, and I think that, I don't know, I've seen a little bit on Twitter that people are saying, oh, well, it's no surprise Ciccolini's doing this, he's a Corsican. That's a bit of a cheap shot. I don't think it's necessarily an issue of people in Corsica taking this attitude, but I do think it's something that's a culture with this club and with this team. That's frustrating. For whatever reason, they draw, quote unquote, the wrong kind of fans. I'm not saying that's all their fans, but there's enough that make it problematic, and it's a shame because the Furiani is a good atmosphere, and they've done well to be where they are. It's fun to see a match there where on television. I mean, obviously, I haven't been there. It's fun to see a crowd fired up, but if they're not being fired up in a positive way, it's something that gives French football a black eye, and it's happened too much. And I have to say I fully agree with Philip about well, I think personally a points deduction. It could hit Bastard really hard this season in particular. In general, I think I'd prefer to see a stadium ban because that would hit the owners financially, and there'd be more onus on the club to rein this sort of behavior in more directly, be it through stewards or ejecting certain fans. But a points deduction might have more of a long-term impact in terms of relegating the club. Let's face it, this is not been a great season for Bastia. They've been hit hard with injuries and some of their loan signings and new signings not working out as best they would have hoped. And I think the relegation were to be tied to this. You would hope it would be the right jumping off point to make things better, but I'm not even certain that would make a difference. This seems like it's a really deep problem.
Of course, if you have the points deduction and that means Bastia would get relegated, the fans would be even more pissed off and say it's the league's fault. It's not even our fault. So it's basically a no-win situation.
It's a complete
because they've been in the doldrums not too long ago. They were actually in Nacional for just one season. I think. I'll pick this up, and the problem still remained, and it was basically Balotelli coming to Bastia was basically the chance to say how provocative those fans are. And again, credit to Balotelli for not responding, because that was the aim. That was very much the aim.
Oh, yeah. Certainly.
And in all honesty, I respect Balotelli even more that it was shown earlier today that the way he responded to those chances was to stay behind in training and work on his game, because he didn't affect the game as much as he's hoped, and he's not quite at 100% fitness at the moment. So congrats to him. But there needs to be something done. I can't see a stadium closure being enough of a punishment because it's happened before. They're not that bothered about it. I think a points deduction is the way to go this time. They've had too many issues. Yes, it might relegate them. Yes, that might turn the fans even angrier. But something has to be done. Other than getting the fines for the management of the club or something like that maybe then affects them to do something about it. It's such a tough one and a weird balancing act to try and find. But something firm needs to be done this time, I think. Otherwise,
not to mention there's a firm dislike of everything that is French from Bastia. So I think this goes way beyond football. It just something I don't really see. I don't even think I can actually appreciate with that kind of problem, because I'm neither a Southerner nor a Corsican, so I don't really. I honestly believe you have to be from that area. I spent a serious amount of time from that area to actually get what the problem is. So I'm afraid I'm not being much of an assistance there.
Yeah, we all might be at a loss for a while on this one, but we'll move on to Lille, who are the latest club in France to be taken over as Gerard Lopez has been sworn in as their new owner. His new reign didn't start great with a 0-0 draw. It wasn't that exciting, but the Luxembourg man has been targeting a top 3 finish and competing with the best in Europe as his long-term goals for the club. Eric, this is probably what Lille fans want to be hearing, right? And where possibly could this new ownership go?
I think top 3 is ambitious, but there's a part of me that also thinks it's possible. I mean, Lille have throughout their existence been a great club for bringing through young players, for giving young talent a chance, and for having great scouting networks. If we think about the number of players that have come through Lille in the recent past, Debuchy, Cabaye, Eden Hazard. I mean, those are some examples. Idrissa Gueye. You think about if that quartet of players were still with the team, you'd be Djibril Sidibe. You'd be looking at a team that would be a legitimate challenger for the Ligue 1 title, and it wouldn't have to be this PSG style or Monaco style splash the cash. If Lopez takes a patient approach and brings in young players, allows them to develop, and isn't forced to sell as Seydou has been with this new stadium arrangement. I think that's what's been driving a lot of it. It's nice to have a new stadium, but unfortunately, the cost for the club is sometimes prohibitive to the point of affecting the team's competitive ability on the pitch. But I think that there's really good seeds there. This isn't buying a club that has a poor history in the recent past. I mean, Lille have won a title in the last 10 years. They've been in the Champions League in the last 10 years. They're a club with great potential. I think that Lopez has made a good decision. I mean, there are a number of other clubs that I don't feel have potential in Ligue 1, but Lille is definitely one of those, and I think it's a positive thing, and it can be done in a more organic manner than the way that PSG have been approached and the way that Marseille seem to be being approached. Rather than just splashing cash on a bunch of big name players, you allow the team to develop. Okay, maybe it takes 3 or 4 years for this to come to fruition, but you play attractive football and bring through young players in the process, and you get a team that can be well supported by the fans, that they feel good, they feel it's not just a bunch of mercenaries, that it's a team that is of the area, that is of the essence of being Lille, not just a big money player in world football. So I think that there's a lot to be said here, a lot of good things to be said here.
And it's good to see money coming back into the league as well. And he's being a little bit coy, Philip, over his so-called friend Marcelo Bielsa taking over. It's rumoured that it's probably coming in the summer unless a better opportunity comes up in the meantime. There's been issues with Patrick Colo in the last couple of weeks with the players as well, a couple of little fallings out. Is it maybe hanging over the current managers, well, current interim managers at least, had this deal for Bielsa? And do you think it's a good move to bring in El Loco to Les Deux?
Well, first, the original question of Serda, I'm saying, hey, why not? Because Monaco, they did have a rich oil guy who has a bit of cash, but a lot has been done in the youth development, and I think Lille have proved that they have experience in this department. And also, I mean, Lille have the whole of Belgium at their disposal. I mean, they did have a period where they had a lot of Belgian players, Belgian youth, proving to be very, very good players. And if they can just reignite this kind of youth development strategy, then it can be not that pricey at all for Mr. Lopez. For Bielsa, yeah, it's midterm. First of all, we are pretty much sure that Colo should be staying until the end of the season. I mean, Lille's was not bad. There has been a bit of rows with the players, but they've lost just 1 in 8, I believe, yeah, which was at Marseille. So a difficult side to beat. Don't think they'll go down just like last season. But they're having their type of season days. They don't change the atmosphere between the manager who starts the season and the players is not going well at all. Then they change the manager, and then all of a sudden the players start clicking. And Lille are one of the most unplayable sides in the league. You just don't really understand how. Bielsa will do what he always does. I mean, be extremely demanding physically, technically, mentally as well. Basically building it, and it could work. Honestly, it really could work. Question about all these nouveaux riches, because you've got Lille, who now have a rich owner. You've got Marseille, who supposedly have a rich owner who doesn't have a great track record, but he's got money. The question I'm asking you is: should Lyon fans be worried with all these clubs getting rich and Lyon still having Aulas?
No.
No,
I don't think so. I do think that Lille, like as I mentioned, have potential to be a solid top 3 side long term. Nice, nah. Let's
not
see
really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's see where it goes. They've got a lot to sort out. I mean, Dante is 33, 34. He's not there long term. Pereira's only on loan. Seri and Playa could be going. They haven't brought anybody in the winter window, which does sort of worry me. They have shown, they have made the right noises, if you will, bringing in players like a Remy Walter, Arnaud Losamba, Willian Cyprien. They have had a focus on bringing in young players, but the other side of that coin is that you're going to have a focus from Monaco who are doing the same thing, bringing in these young players, allowing them a chance to develop and play. So I would be less worried though about Marseille. I mean, McCourt has said he wants to invest $200 million in the club. Okay, now fans of the club will see that and say, "Oh, great, he's going to spend $200 million on players. That'll put us back in the Champions League." But my question is, if that's what he means, $200 million on player sales, that could be enough to get them into the Champions League. But for the money being what it is in world football right now, I don't know that that's even enough. And if he even intends to spend that all on transfer fees, I mean, think about it. Okay, he's after Dimitri Payet. There's 15% of your budget gone if you sign Payet. Not to mention wages for these types of players that you're going to bring in. Okay, Ricardo Rodriguez. There's another example. I don't think Marseille have a chance in hell of getting him, but he'd have similar wages to Payet, and he'd be probably more on the order of 40 million because he's a little bit younger. And
why wouldn't they have a chance in hell of getting Ricardo Rodriguez?
Marseille?
Yeah, I mean, Wolfsburg are not having a great season. He's not. I don't see why. I mean, I think unrealistic.
I think that he's of a level of a club that are in the Champions League year in, year out. Okay. Marseille aren't that right now.
No.
Yeah, at his top, very top. I think I'd agree with Eric. I think he's slumped a little bit in the last season or so.
Well, he's also been playing centre back this year.
Yeah, which doesn't help because he's definitely not a centre back, but a left back, especially on his game, he's a very good left back.
Well, there's also the question of the manager. I mean, Valérien Ismaël has just taken the reign at Wolfsburg, and if I don't know, some guy like some club, like Lille come knocking on the door with Bielsa in, or maybe he'll think maybe twice about signing or not. I do agree about what you said about Nice. So I mean, it's not a great pull. It's not it doesn't have a great heritage as a football club, and it's completely clouded by Marseille. Doesn't have any money really. A lot of it has been based on youth development, which they've done terrific in.
It's not that they don't have any money. I mean, let's face it, the wages that
they do have a bit, but compared to Monaco, PSG, it's not much.
Well, it's certainly a cut above, say, the other 14 or 13 teams in Ligue 1. Yeah. That's the difference. That allows them. That's going to allow them to be probably in the top 7 year in and year out going forward with that Chinese investment. But it's now a much more crowded field. You have the current top 3: Lyon, Nice, and Monaco and Lille, and that's going to make Ligue 1 a stronger league. But There are going to be teams that are going to be disappointed, just like the race for the top 4 in England right now. I mean, you're going to have, you have 5 or 6 strong teams right now in England, and 2 of those managers are going to be disappointed coming into the season. And it'll be the same thing in France. You're going to have teams who have invested 100 million euro and who don't get what they want in return.
Turning into the Premier League, bloody hell! Let's not have that happen.
Yeah.
We'll finish this evening with a new segment on our podcast that we will be calling "Ce n'est pas possible," which almost sounds like someone's it sounds like someone's New Year's resolution, doesn't it? I think myself and both our panelists will look at a topic that's happened this week in Liga that they couldn't quite believe. Philip, you have chosen a certain incident involving an Italian for Paris Saint-Germain.
Yes, big surprise. It involves PSG. Marco Verratti had the ball a bit before the penalty area. It had to be before the penalty area, otherwise he would have given away a penalty. And when the ball is trickling down the goal line, the goalkeeper is nowhere to be seen, defenders are nowhere to be seen, and you just have to put a little touch to get the ball over the line, and you cheekily put your head and bump the ball over the line. This is what Verratti done, only he did it for back pass to Kevin Trapp, who was not very good actually on Saturday. A couple of passes, but anyway, and the referee booked him for it. Oh, I've never seen that before. And I've been doing some research, and apparently, there are some theories that say that Monsieur Gauthier, I think it was Gauthier, was it? Anyway, said he was correct in booking Verratti. Now it's not really that big a deal that he booked Verratti. Verratti gets booked every weekend. A big deal is that he basically did not book him for another challenge, which he won the ball in, but he had high studs, and in any other circumstances, i.e., had he not had a booking for that ridiculous action, he would have had a booking for the high studs. So it basically changed a bit the game, because then we're all like, well, you should have sent Verratti off, and you probably should have. But yeah, I mean, I've never seen that before. First of all, I've never seen a player do something like that outside the penalty area. Just goes to show how attacking minded not were as well.
And the referee, Jean Amel,
Amel.
Yes, it was anti-sporting behaviour known in the game as trickery was his reason for the booking. Eric, what did you think?
Oh, about Verratti? Yeah. I mean, I watched this match live. I saw this happen, and it's trickery. He deserves it. He's trying to be too clever. The referee knows the rules. Rightly books him. I mean, Verratti.
No, I didn't know that. I mean, I've never seen it before. So, but I've learned that if you do that, you get a booking. My guess is Verratti won't be doing that very often. Then.
Were you watching the match, Philip? Out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Did the French commentators? What did they say about it?
Actually, I was watching on the stream, which was Portuguese, so I didn't understand.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was watching the Ligue 1 World feed, and the commentator knew right away. He said, "Okay, that's trickery," and he even mentioned the specific number. And it's well done to Amel. It's it's the kind of thing that you would be surprised to see a club like PSG get nailed for, but well done.
I'm gonna interject with a disagreement on this one. I think it's a joke, in all honesty. I've seen it a number of times in England happen, a number of times, and no one's ever been pulled up on it. I've done it myself a number of times, just because you're not told not to do it. Trickery, I mean, come on. He's not done anything that's harmed the play. He's used a clever moment of using his head so his goalkeeper can pick it up. I know, in my opinion, at least, it's farcical. It's a strange one. People in England probably think the same. They've probably seen the video and thought, well, I would do the same. That's happened in the Premier League before. I'm almost certain on it. And I've never seen anyone booked for that. It's strange one. That's why it's so interesting, though. But, Eric, let's talk about your ce n'est pas possible moment this week, and that's Adam Umas.
Yeah, Adam Unas has been set to train on his own by Bordeaux's management. He left the team, he left the team without advising the team after the match on Sunday, after being left on the bench against Toulouse. And as we mentioned on Thursday's preview show, he's a player who's on record as saying he admires Sofiane Boufal. And I kind of wonder that he's not taking that to the extreme. I mean, Boufal's a player who's been petulant and been a git, for lack of a better word. And Unas seems to be taking that to the extreme, but without having proven it. I mean, Boufal got him to Southampton because he was incredibly talented. Unas is incredibly talented, but he doesn't have the track record that Boufal has had at his time with Lille and his time with Angers as well, as being a player who can do it consistently on the pitch. And I'm really wondering, this is a player who's been lauded by just about every observer of Ligue 1 as being, one for the future. He's 20 years old, he's incredibly talented, and he's a wonder with the ball at his feet. But he's gonna blow his chance. Bordeaux is a good-sized club. He's being given an opportunity to be in the team under Gourvenec, under a manager who's ambitious and has shown he can lead a team to success even with limited means in the past with Guingamp. And I worry that he's going to be one of these be and never was, as opposed to a success story. And it's a frustrating thing to see happen, that a player's on-pitch situation is going to be affected by his off-pitch attitude. I don't think there's anything more for me personally to say about it. It's just a really disappointing turn of events.
I agree with that, Philip. It's a shame to see someone try and almost waste their talent, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Boufal is special. I wouldn't go and say Unas is special. Unas is quite talented for his age, but yeah, he shouldn't be doing that kind of stuff. It's an attitude that's a bit all too common in Liga with youngsters not really following the rules or being polite and that kind of thing. Getting away with murder basically because they have the talent. Which is not quite where Unas is at the moment. I don't think.
Yeah, and hats off to Gourvenec for stamping this out early, and hopefully, we all hope at least Adam Unas recovers from it. And I'll finish with my moment of this week, and that's Saint-Etienne's win against Angers. And that might seem strange. You might think that Saint-Etienne should be winning.
No, it's not strange.
I can't believe they won this game. I genuinely can't believe it. Angers had all the good chances and were so unlucky with a number of them. They went in front through a great header. I can't remember that it was a centre-back, wasn't it, playing up front? What was his name?
Pavlovic.
Yeah, and it was his first ever goal as well. They played Pavlovic.
He was great up front. I mean, he was...
They played the big man up front. They really worked hard, especially in the first half. They were excellent. And Saint-Etienne score a deflected goal from Amouma, and it cannons in from a strange angle. It's very lucky. And then Perrin scores a goal that he doesn't know anything about because the defenders tried to clear it. It's hit him in the wrist. So is it a handball? Maybe that should be given as well. And it rebounds off him and goes into the goal. And I'm not sure if they know if they can win that game. It was one of those games where I can't believe they won that game. That was so lucky, and it's almost so Saint-Etienne that they struggle to score goals. So the two goals they score is an incredible deflection that goes in and a goal that he knows absolutely nothing about. I don't know what you two thought about it, but I can't believe they won it.
I actually was quite disappointed that they won. I wanted Angers to win because I thought they were more organised and had better, better striker in Pavlovic. And also because that makes Saint-Etienne 6, which is far too high for a side that doesn't score any goals.
Eric, what did you think?
No, I agree. I think that Saint-Etienne are not the sixth best team in Ligue 1 week in and week out, and I think that it's frustrating for Angers to be where they are after the events of the last 2 weeks. Don't forget their other goal was an own goal. And after last week, having the same thing happen against Bordeaux, the club have to be turning themselves inside out with frustration in the situation.
Yeah, Moulin must be tossing and turning at night, wondering how he can turn it around. And it's, I think you made a great statement to finish there, Philip. That Pavlovic was the best centre forward in that game, and that's a startling statement of how Saint-Etienne are going forward. But that's all we have for this week. My thanks to Eric, Philip, and to everyone listening at home. Just before we go, I'd like to point you in the direction of our Talking Points article that written by our very own Eric Devine and Adam White. That is now also on The Guardian. Do check that out. It's a great read. Remember to join us for the preview show hosted by Eric on Thursday, and we will see you here at the same time, same place next week. A bientôt and goodbye.